Besides Jesus being my first love, this is my second most favorite topic. It's doing what you're called to do, which is your first love, and then whatever mission is that the Lord's given you. And so I love leadership. Leadership is one of my favorite topics to ever talk about. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of it. Leadership, I'm going to explain that a little bit later, but I'll go into it right now, it's not by position. Leadership is influence. So, for example, Valuz is close to me. He's not over me. Who's over me is my leadership that's over me, and they give me all the stuff that we're talking about as a team. But he's working with me. But if Valuz says something, it really influences me. Like if he tells me he stopped messaging me at 1 a.m. Now it's 9 p.m. But so if he messages me at 9 p.m. and he says, hey, there's something we got to do, that influences me. That's like, well, what is it? It's like, well, we don't have this, and we need this. And I'm like, oh, that's influence. That's a level of leadership. So, right, if you come up to me and you say, hey, Tommy, remember when we did the push-ups? Yeah, I can only do 3. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, can you show me how to do 10? Like, that influences me. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to talk to him about how to do 10 push-ups. But see, at any level, you influence somebody. You can go over to him and say he's guapo, right? That will influence him somehow. He's going to go look in the mirror and like, oh, I'm not guapo. And then they'll influence him because you have a level of leadership. So you have a sphere. If you're in the middle, you have leaders you can influence that are over you in authority. You have people besides you that you could influence in terms of brothers and sisters and brethren. And then you have people that you're calling forward and you're bringing forward, that you're discipling, you're bringing them to the next level. And then you have leadership over them. Some people only see that they have leadership here, where it's like if I'm bringing someone somewhere, or if I'm over them by a position or a ranking or something like that, that's leadership. That's one level of leadership, and I'll even explain that a little bit more. But then leadership is way bigger than that. And I learned that really early, and that's why I was able to succeed in what I'm doing. It's because I realized, okay, I may not be the main leader, but I can influence everyone around me, because that's just how it works. If you look at the stories of Daniel was a captive. He was a slave. But because he was able to serve the king in a supernatural, wise way, he was able to turn over the kingdom of Babylon. Joseph was like that as well. He started out as a slave, and then he was able to influence the king by stewarding everything that he had. And then over a period of time, he basically ran the kingdom. And it wasn't because he was over the Pharaoh. He was never over the Pharaoh. Daniel and Joseph were never the king of Babylon or of Egypt, but they were always the slave. But because they knew influence, they were able to lead the whole country. And so that's what you really have to pick up. We really have to learn that when we talk about ministry and we talk about leadership, it has nothing to do with your position even. It has everything to do with the fact I am salt and light, and everywhere that I go, I can make a difference. And it may be a different layer. It may be a different type of role, but you'll always be able to influence somebody. And what is it? I remember, or was this one time I was talking with Mark, and we were talking about the base. And, Mark's over 119 countries. He directly leads over 119 different countries. So I'm talking to him, and I've been in America and the Philippines, right? So I don't even lead over a country. So I'm talking to him, and then we're praying, and then we're talking about where should the base be. And then I told him, well, I had a vision of Davao in Mindanao in 2010, that God was moving in Mindanao. I didn't know that that's when the IWT campaigns were going on. That was something else. That was another vision. And so I told Mark that, and I said, okay, let's go to, I'm going to go to Davao. So he's going to look for the property in Davao. And I'm like, oh, So like he gets a ticket. He flies to Davao because I suggested it. And then he looks around, and then there were some properties he was looking at. Then they got bought out by some other countries, China specifically. So then he came back, and then he found nothing. There's nothing there. And I was like, wow, he actually really listened to me. Like I said, God told me something in Davao, then he actually went there. And then we go over, then it's I think it's like a year or two later, and then we're talking about the property again. And then we go into, and then we're like, well, we're in Cebu, and we're like, maybe let's look in Cebu. So I go pull up a couple of places that we might be able to go into. And then he actually comes and he looks at it. And he's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I mean, if you saw him, they're obviously not going to work. So we're like, okay, we're not going to do it here. So then we leave Cebu. But then what that taught me was that he actually listens to me. Like he gets 900 emails a day. Like 900. Do you even have an email box? Do you have an email box? Imagine you got 900 Facebook messages a day. That's like all of them come from global leaders. They're like, hey, I'm over 10,000 people. What should we do? Hey, I'm over 5,000 people here in Korea. Can you come over and speak? Hey, I want to start this whole compassion ministry. We have $5 million. Can you come and speak at this event for launching it? That's the type of emails he got. It's not like, oh, hey, Mark, what's up? How's your pants doing? Like, what? Like, yeah, you got new shoes? Like, he's not getting those kind of emails. They're like giant emails because of the level that he's already matured in. And then I tell him, hey, God told me it might be in Mindanao. Then he flies over there and checks it. Because I'm not over him, but I influence him. That's how all of you are. All of you influence even your staff. So even when you talk to them, if you have good things to say, that influences them. If you have bad things to say, yeah, that really influences them, right? Try and have more good things to say than bad things, right? But then they're going to feel everything you say because you now influence them. And then they'll feel that. All of them will feel that. And they're probably feeling that right now. So let's go ahead and move a little bit forward. All right, so go ahead and go to number 1. This is the word that's really important. Romans 12:6-8. I'm going to read it. So this is when he discusses different gifts. Having gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, let us prophesy in proportion to our faith. He who leads with diligence. That word is very, very important. Diligence. I always think about it. It's the number one word that I use when I think of leadership. And the reason why is because it's in the Bible. So let's read what diligence means. Because this is what, when you think about leadership and influence, this is what you think about when you think of leadership. When you think of leadership, don't think about coming up here and saying something. When you think of leadership, don't think about, I'm going to tell you what to do because you're guapo. Like, right? That's not what leadership is. This is what leadership is in the Bible. The constant and earnest effort to accomplish what is overtaken with persistent exertion. So what that means is I am going to be completely focused until the goal that I have is accomplished with excellence. That's what leadership is. If you do anything with that spirit, God will promote you. He'll always multiply you. It could be absolutely anything. It could be this room. If we walk into this room and this room looks absolutely shining every single day, someone's doing it. You know where I look for leaders? It's where nobody wants to be. That's where I look for leaders. I look for the task in the lowest of the lowest of the lowest place. And then I see who goes there. And then I see who does it excellently. And whoever does the lowest of the low task excellently will probably be the next leader that God anoints. That's how Mark found Claudia. So when they first pioneered the base in Kansas City, she was a student, then she became a staff. She was one of the first staff that came on. Not the first leaders, but the first staff. And then so she came on, and then they have all of this random stuff to do when you pioneer. Like random stuff. It's like one time we had a Chinese school there, and then they brought ducks, like live ducks. So like they wanted to give a gift to somebody. And then they were like, okay, here in Asia and where we're from, when we have something we want to give to you, we give you a duck. And it represents blessing. So cook it. So then all of our staff, they have these live ducks in the kitchen. And then food, right? If you have any livestock in the kitchen, you could be shut down immediately in America. You can't have that stuff. They poo and pee and run around. They got all these diseases and stuff. They're like wild animals. So you can't have that in the kitchen. That's the kind of random stuff you run into. Sometimes people got to go clean up dead animals because, you get people from different parts of the country. We have people killing squirrels and skinning them and then cooking them. Just random stuff like that. That's like the kind of random stuff you get in pioneering. And so she's over here and then Mark's looking at the whole base. And then he knows what's tough to do because he's built bases. So it's not like he's just coming along and saying like, all right, this is what needs to do. I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know that. It's like he knows what's hard and he knows what's difficult. He knows his flock. He knows what they're capable of doing and he knows who's going to take on the challenge. So then he looks around and then when he was sending me and Claudia over, he spoke about this. He spoke about Claudia being one of those people that he knew that Claudia was somebody special because every time there was something that nobody wanted to do, she was the first one to do it. She wouldn't even say, I'll do it. She went straight to doing it. That's the kind of character that Claudia has. And then when she would do it, it would get done faster than anyone would ever think it would get done. And it would get done better than what the leader said to do it in. And then she would go to her leader and say, what else do you need to get done? And she did that nonstop forever. That's what she does now. She looks at it, then she sees what's not getting done. She'll go there, she'll fill in the gap, and then she'll serve, and then she'll do it. And she'll do it with excellence. And then Mark said, so I knew whoever she married was going to have to be special too. And then it was you. No, I'm joking. So anyways. So but that's diligence. That's what we have inside of us because of the Holy Spirit. But you have to think. You have to, it's hard. You got to go wait a minute here. How do I do this one thing? I don't know how to do it. You got to learn it. You got to go I don't know how to do it. I have to learn how to do it. So I got to go figure out how to go do it. And then I got to go do it. And then I got to figure out, how do I not just do it? How do I do it greatly? And then you got to go do it greatly. If you do that with any task you've been given in work duty, DTS, school, college, your job, you will always be successful. That's the secret of life. It's leadership with diligence. So if ever you're not succeeding in life, if ever you're not moving forward in life, if ever you're I just don't know how to do this, it's because you're not listening to the Bible. It says when you lead with diligence. You exert force that's focused until the job is done. People want to look at me sometimes and they're like, why do you look so crazy? And I'm like, because I'm doing a lot of stuff right now. There's a lot of stuff I'm thinking about. I don't have the chance. There's no second of my day when I could ever get lazy. I can never be lazy. If I ever get lazy, you get lazy. But that's not even why I don't get lazy. Well, that's one of them, but that's not all of it. It's because there's so much stuff that needs to get done. And my calling is it needs to get done. This stuff needs to happen. It needs to roll forward. We need to have these campaigns. We need to set this stuff internationally. We need to have this base running. We need this school to have burning, fiery ones that are lit for God, that are able to pursue the gospel of Jesus and go effectively to the ends of the earth. And they'll be able to finish the commission that God has them. And we need that done in the millions. We don't need that done in the 10s or the 20s or the 30s. We need that done over the whole 1040 window. And specifically when God gave it to us. There's no time to think that we have any free time. The only free time you got is called Sabbath. And that's worshiping God with all your heart. There's no time anymore for me to just go I'm just going to not do anything today. That doesn't exist. Because if I don't do anything today, I'm not falling deeper in love with Jesus. You can't recuperate on your Sabbath unless you're falling deeper in love with Jesus. So right when I get done with all this stuff and my throat's like ripping in half, I go sit down and then I open my Bible. And then I talk to God about how much he loves me. And then I talk to God about what he wants to do. And then I talk to God about what his will is. And then I love it. And then I go up, and then Ariella gets home, and then I play with her. Then her eyes are so cute. And then I go to lunch, and then I eat the food, and that's super good. And then we go home, and then I go with Claudia, then I pray. And then it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock at night, and then I have my quiet time when everybody's asleep. And then I wake up at like 6 or 5 or whatever it is before Ariella wakes up and Claudia. And then I go have my quiet time again. Because the second my baby wakes up, it's done. She's like, da-da. And then she just starts kissing me everywhere and rolling. What she does with me is she puts her belly on my head. And then she goes like this. So like, it's not a bad thing she wakes up. But you got to get your first love right first. You got to get, my baby's not my first love. That's a fruit of God in my life. But she's not God. I can only get fulfilled from Jesus. Like even with Claudia and I, when we get into fights and we have arguments and I'm in a bad mood and I can't fix it or whatever it is, it's not her job for me to fall in love with Jesus. That's not my job. And if she's having something spiritually that God's challenging her with, and then, we're not functioning correctly or whatever it is, so it's also her job to get that from Jesus too. It never stops. It's diligence. And the more comfortable, or maybe not comfortable, but the more of a lifestyle you make out of living diligently, the more you could see God's work in your life. The more you could see the fruit of God in your life. The more that you could see the passion of God that you have be used for something. All right, so let's go ahead and break down what diligence looks like. All right, well, actually, let's read a couple more Proverbs. All right. He who has a slack hand, this is Proverbs 10:4, paragraph C. He who has a slack hand will become poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. It's really true. It's really true. I know that there's a lot of people that are wealthy and then they give money to their next generation. But I know a lot of wealthy people. They're very far from lazy. Someone that's come from nothing and has wealth works incredibly hard. Like as much as we look at Trump and he's like, in the beginning kind of saying jerky stuff and maybe he might say it now. He's sometimes saying stuff like that. He's very successful in business. He knows economy really well. He's incredibly diligent. He's not lazy at all. There's no ounce of Trump that's lazy. He might be saying stuff that's out of line with the Bible a good amount of times, but that his diligence isn't off there. If you ever see someone that's successful that hasn't, it's true. Because even if someone's successful, then they have an inheritance and they give it to somebody, but that person isn't diligent, they lose it all. So you just never see anyone that's successful that's lazy. They don't work together. So if ever you want to be successful in the call of God of your life, even your first love, cultivating your own garden, you have to be diligent. There's nothing in the Bible that creates fruit that partners with laziness. Laziness holds hands with destruction. That's what it says in Proverbs. All right, let's move over. Proverbs 12:24. The hand of the diligent rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. Diligence is man's precious possession. Okay, so here's the deal. This is Proverbs. This is in the Bible. It's just a universal law. If you're somebody that's lazy, somebody will always force you to do something. Because you don't want to do anything, right? That's how laziness works. It says in the Bible, the lazy man is so lazy, he can't make his own food. And then when he can't make his own food, but he somehow gets it, he's so lazy, he can't bring it to his mouth to eat. But the diligent will be prosperous. That's what it says in the Bible. It's a principle. And then it talks about there's people that are diligent and then they go broke. Because there's principles of life there. It's bigger than that. It's God. But that's the idea there. You'll always be forced to do something if you never step up your game in diligence. That's how it works. If you look at your life and you're like, man, people are always forcing me to do something, it's probably because you're not doing anything. It's a Bible proverb. That's how it works. But imagine if you're diligent, you're serving, you see what the Lord is doing in your life, you see what the Lord is doing in your team, and you're diligent in serving that, and you're creating opportunities, you're getting stuff done, you're moving things forward. Why would anyone try and force you to do anything? You just keep doing what you're doing because you're doing so well. That's a proverb. It's a principle of life. So let's go ahead and move a little bit forward. This stuff changed my life. This stuff, if you were to look at why was my life changed so much from a gang member to now, it's because of my first love and leadership. It's learning what does God mean by leadership and what does God mean by him being our first love. Those are the two biggest lessons that changed my life. And so this stuff is absolutely super important to me, and it's important to God. Okay, the next one is a sense of purpose. That you choose that, right? I went over that, I think, a couple of days ago. You're the only one in your life, when you look at your life categories, you're the only one that knows what to do. When you don't have a sense of purpose, you get lazy. You just start going on your phone. You just start not doing anything. You just start daydreaming because you don't have something that overcomes your life and passion. There's no sense of purpose. So if you look at it, how does Jesus live his life? Does Jesus have a sense of purpose? Go ahead, give me some answers. Yeah, right? Yeah, if you were to look at anyone incredibly focused and sincere and diligent, they even classified the crucifixion as the passion of Jesus. He was so focused on raising up his bride, which was the church, he died for her. Incredible focus, incredible sense of purpose. You cannot look at Jesus and become lazy. It's incredibly difficult to look at Jesus and go well, he's not doing anything. I guess I won't. He's never not doing anything. He is so magnificently strong as a leader. It inspires you to become more. That's how Jesus is. You can't read anything in the Bible about Jesus that will make you lazy. When you read Jesus, his eyes are like a flame of fire. His hair is like white wool. His voice is like thunder that slashes the trees in half, that give birth to the gazelles in the mountaintops. It's filled with life and creation and passion and zeal and purpose and vision. That's how Jesus is. He's a warrior coming and saying, Michael, the archangel says, let the Lord rebuke you. He's Jesus, the man with the sword that's coming to destroy the devil. He's the one that's coming to defeat the kingdoms of darkness. Right? I always hear this when we were booking schools and getting the city set up, and I was like, almost 25% of this whole city is going to hear the gospel. It's like there's going to be over 250,000 people that hear the gospel in this city. And then I went down and I booked it. Then I looked at it. And then when I was sitting down, I was eating my Chow King because there ain't nothing else there. And then I ate my Chow King. And then the Lord looked at me and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm eating. I'm celebrating. And then he said, darkness is a lot more diligent than you. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you're trying to book schools. They're trying to change laws here. And then a couple of months later, LBGT came and tried to put gay rights into the Philippines like they did in America. And then I'm over here booking schools. So, right? Darkness has no rest. If anyone has a sense of purpose as well, it's the devil. The devil absolutely wants you stolen from, destroyed, and murdered. He has an amazing sense of purpose to destroy us. Our sense of purpose with the Holy Spirit has to far exceed darkness. There's no room for men, right? Even for men. I'll talk to the men right now. There's no room for lazy men in this world. We're the kings. We're the fighters. We're the warriors. We're the leaders. We're the husbands. We're the fathers. When God speaks about the men in the Bible, they're the ones that are supposed to change the family, the city, the kingdom, the armies. That's our identity as men of God. There's no room for the world in the kingdom of light to have one man that is not a warrior for Christ. There's way too many battles. There's way too much leadership needed. There's way too much responsibility. Every single man in the world. The first vision I had of the Philippines was that I was going to be the roaring lion of Southeast Asia. And when the men and the women of Southeast Asia from the Philippines came out, that there would be a roar of evangelism that came out from this country, and it would shake Indochina, Indonesia. And that's what we do. That's Jesus. He's absolutely fiery, absolutely purposeful, absolutely driven, and absolutely focused on the purity of the bride and the kingdom being established. No ounce of passivity in him at all. An amazing man, a man worth following, a man worth dying for, a man worth being our king, right? He's the only one that's worthy of that. All right, let's go ahead. Take initiative to act. This is leadership again, all right? Proverbs 13:4. The soul of a lazy man desires, and it has nothing. But the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. That doesn't just mean money. That means success. That means you're able to accomplish what God has for you in this season. It could be anything. It could be preaching the gospel. It could be learning what you need to learn in DTS. It's the fullness that God has for you. It's the richness of God, of the pleasures forevermore that he has for you. It says this. This is where you can see laziness. What do you want in life? Nothing. What are your dreams? Nothing. What do you want to get done today? Nothing. The soul of a lazy man I want to have money. I want to have this. I want to have that. I want to do this, but nothing. I'm not going to do anything. That's where you have to have diligence and leadership. You have to be able to look at your life and say, like, I'm going to choose everything God has for me in this season. He's put me in this DTS. He's given me the Bible. He's given me a library. He's given me mentors and staff and leaders. He's put me in like a place filled with prayer. He has so much in store for us. I'm going to want everything that God has for me in this season. The riches of his first love, I want that. Whenever you feel yourself saying, I don't want nothing, laziness is creeping at your door. And it will make you sleep for 24 hours. It'll make you, I used to sleep when I used to play video games. That's why I relate to Genesis. I used to play World of Warcraft. I used to microwave something, eat it, and then I would play for 8 hours. And then I would microwave something, I would eat it, and then I'd play for another 8 hours. I'd do that. I'd have 3 microwavable goods. I'd play through the night, eat for 10 minutes while I'm playing, and then keep playing. And then I'd nap for like an hour, and then I would just keep playing and playing and playing and playing and playing and playing. And then I'd crash out, and then I would sleep actually for 3 hours. Then I would keep going and going and going and going and going. And my whole life was submitted to this laziness of life, where nothing I'm doing but sitting there entertaining myself. And then if anybody asks me, what do you want to do today? I don't want to do anything. I just want to play my game. I just want to do this. I just want to sit home and watch TV all day. That's laziness creeping at your door. You got to kill that sucker. You got to kick that thing in the face. You got to say, God's got more for me than nothing. I know who my King of Kings is. I know who my first love is. And he is absolutely, when I look at him, I ravish his heart. There's way more coming from my King than nothing. The devil lies to us and says, you have nothing in life. The King says, let me bring you to the mountains. Let me take you to the kingdom. Let me bring you to the garden. Let me take you around the world. That's what the King says. The devil says, yeah, you ain't got nothing. You're never going to do anything. You never got any identity. Don't listen to that stuff. It's garbage. All right. Anyways, Just kick it in the face and listen to God. All right, leaders take responsibility to start or strengthen a ministry. So that's another aspect of taking initiative, is that you would look at this place and you would go like, because this is where you're at right now. So I'm just going to use it as an example. You would look at this place and you would go like, how can I strengthen this movement and this ministry? And you're thinking about it, right? Like Taylor came in here and then she had this dream list, right? Of like, I'm going to go, can we go put this here? Can we put this couch here? Can we do this? Can we make a living room? Can we do all this? She came in wanting to strengthen what was lacking. And then Veluz does it in different ways. He came in and saw that nobody knew what they were doing and said, I got to do a lot of stuff. And then so every one of the staff, they come in like that. They come in and they know there's something I can add to this movement. There's something I can bring to the table. Whether I'm starting out or I'm learning how to do it and I'm adding it as I grow and I'm serving. But we as staff, they come in with the expectancy that I'm going to take initiative to nurture God's vision here with whatever he's doing in the Great Commission. And then for students, that's what you have right now. It's like, as students, you could look at it and go like, how can I strengthen whatever I'm putting my hands to? Whatever my role is, whatever responsibility I've been given, whether it's homework or it's like a work duty or it's your engagement in class or a small group, how can I add value to everybody around me? How can I make this the most thriving small group? By listening to people, by engaging to them, by affirming them, by encouraging them. How can I be that person of positive, godly influence whenever I'm around my people? That's how you think of taking initiative. Everywhere you go, you're edifying and building something up. You're always building something up. It's second nature. All right, here's the next one for a leader. Taking risk. Right? That's one thing I love about my staff. They really take some risk. Because we're going to throw you guys out in the water, in the deep side. I already tossed them in the abyss. They're already in some hurricane. And they're never getting out until God calls them. And then they're risk takers because they're pioneers. So they're like, all right. Like, Austin didn't even know what was going on here. He just got a call from God and he said, okay, I'm here. Then when he came, he didn't know what was going on. First day of orientation, he was like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Taking a risk. You're like, all right, I don't know how to do this. We're going to go do this. I never spoke in front of people, never spoke in front of a class. I never prophesied, I never preached, but I'm going to just take the risk. I'm going to just do it. If I take this risk, it's going to edify the body. And then you go out and then you look like a fool sometimes. You get it wrong, you fall on your face, you get corrected, you try and figure out how to do it again, and then you laugh about it. And you go to Jesus, and you look at Jesus, you see that he's ravished by your love, and then you get empowered, and then you step back up, and then you take another risk. And then you learn, and then you learn, and then you learn, and then you learn. It's the adventure of pioneering. It's the adventure of following God. You never know where he's going to throw you into. He took Moses, one man, and said, save all of the slaves of Egypt. 1.2 million people. One guy. That's like the size of Taguig City. That's like one guy coming and saying, come take everyone from Taguig and bring them to Cavite. Actually, it's a lot further than that. But then he said, just one guy leading it. He was so afraid to do it, but he had to take the biggest risk of his life to do it. God's not in the business of small risk. He told one of Peter, the first thing he told Peter was walk on water. Leave everything you got. Peter and his brother, that was the family business. That was the breadwinner for the whole generation of their family. And he said, come with me, I'll make you fishers of men. That's a huge risk. What's going to happen to the provision of my family? What's going to happen to the livelihood of our business? He took a risk. And he said, God's telling me to do this. We have to take this risk. Leaders take risk. That's what diligence do.